mean, it's not nice being called a racist and a bigot and a white supremacist, and particularly finding nobody, apparently, who's willing to risk anything to show any kind of civic courage to stand up and say this is horrible. Shit, where was I going with all this? I was taking this somewhere.
Oh, you're saying a lot of dark moments over the past 2 weeks, and I assume you're going to say there was some bright spots or something?
Yeah, oh, cripes. Oh, God.
You were talking about dark moments over the past 2 weeks.
Yes, no, oh, I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment.
Okay. Here, I'll just...
I hope it'll... I'm just going to let it lay. Maybe it'll come back.
Yeah. As I listen to you...
Oh, I'm sorry, I remember. Now I'm remembering. Roy Beck. Do you know Roy? He's head of Numbers USA. Roy Beck is... I'm sorry?
Roy Beck.
Yeah, B-E-C-K. Okay.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic human being. I mean, you know how it is when you meet certain people and they have light coming off them. I mean, he's an enormously decent, ethical, kind, good guy. And he wrote me a letter, like at 3 a.m, on email, and he talked about the fact that, when he was growing up, he grew up in the Ozarks in Mississippi, in Missouri, that his great wish was to do something in a cause, that he could have some cause that he could really believe in and do something for it. And he said, I should have also prayed for good publicity. He said, I didn't pray for that. And he said, so I got a cause. But then he said, one of the most painful things for me is that he said, I'm a religious man, and he said, in the Methodist Church, I am held up as an example of a Methodist gone bad. And he said, it's excruciating for me. And Roy was the one who said, he said in his letter that, there's a reason why bearing false witness is in the Ten Commandments. And he talked about the fact that, he made a point of buying houses in mixed neighborhoods, of sending his kids to bust schools, to show his genuine commitment to integration and to comedy between the races. And it's not something he talked about, it's something he lived. And this is a guy, I mean, he's a very, very good person. And essentially he said, look, just, don't descend to their level. We have the issue, we're on the right side of the issue, and we should keep our own ethics clean. And right now you're in the pit being beaten, and it'll last for a certain amount of time. But eventually our movement will get bigger so that their ability to do this for as long as they're doing it will be lessened. And you just have to hold on to that. And that meant a great deal to me. And he really is a remarkably good guy. And by the way, he had the idea. I don't know what we'll do with it. You should probably not broadcast this one, although...
Wait, everything you can tell me after I turn it off, so everything you're saying now...
Okay, fine. Sure. Fair enough.
So are you ending the thought there?
Yeah, I think I'll end the thought there.
Okay. Let me just think about what you just said. How did we get to a place where the slightest hint of, anything that could be in the slightest connotation of consideration of race just ends all discussion? How did that happen to us? Because that seems to me the crux of why all elite opinion is against you.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I'm not sure that I know the answer, except that I know that it's been good business politically and career-wise for people who played this card. They have found a lot of self-loathing saps who are willing to tolerate it. Obviously one thinks of the most egregious examples, like, the Sharptons out there, but all sorts of people have done this. They've played the race card. They've played on white susceptibility over guilt and so on. And particularly with people who I think have inadequate ego strength, or you were talking about have an inadequate tie to some very powerful sustaining center. As in your case, say, your observantly lived Jewish life. I mean, I think the people who are hollow at the core, it's easier to get to them, and there are a lot of hollow people. And I think if they're hollow and they're then easily guilt-tripped, and this stuff, it really does pay off beautifully for the ones who are able to work it. And you can work the system when you have enough hollow men out there. And we're full of hollow men and people who will not stand up and say anything. I mean, I'm not like that. If someone shoves me, I shove back. If I'm on the subway and some guy 6 feet and he's black shoves me back, I say, well, fuck you, buddy. I won't put up with it. I just don't put up with stuff. And I don't give people of color a pass any more than I would give any other rude person a pass. I just don't do it. It's not in my nature. I have a belligerent nature. I just don't put up with shit. I don't care where it's coming from. I'm an equal opportunity belligerent guy. And I think there are people who just feel, oh my God, you can't say anything, and I mean, I'm as baffled by it as you are. I mean, maybe you've got an explanation, and please share it with me. But I mean, I do find it baffling. I mean, why do you let yourself get guilt-tripped this way? Why don't you defend yourself? Why don't you see racial huckstering for what it is? Call it by its right name. But they seem incapable of doing that. I mean, I hear people now telling me that Sharpton is, he's a statesman. He's the smartest guy they've got out there. And I'm thinking, yeah, he's the guy who started the fire at Freddy's Fashion Mart in Harlem that ended up with 8 deaths. This is the guy who peddled anti-Semitism. He's peddled racism all his life. I mean, he's the lowliest kind of filth one can imagine. Going back to the Tawana Brawley case, where a state trooper committed suicide because his integrity had been so besmirched. I mean, I'm thinking about the little stuff that I've put up with, let alone can you imagine a guy who becomes a cop and who's basically a decent guy and is charged with rape, and everyone believes it? I mean, yeah, I can understand putting a bullet through your head, and Sharpton walked away from that. I mean, but he's obviously the worst and foulest example, but it's a very generalized phenomenon, and the schools encourage it, and all the multicultural curricula encourage it, and the revisionist versions of American history go around. I mean, you're going to get a kick out of this, but it was horrible. The one time I spoke at a Reconstructionist synagogue was in Maryland, and of course there was a women lesbian rabbi, and she obviously didn't like me because I'm sort of a guy's guy. I mean, I am. And she didn't like me. And then she was interrupting me all the time. And I just finally said, would you please shut up? I'm the guest here. Just shut up. If you want to say something, say it afterwards. But then we were sitting outside. She just looked daggers at me. I mean, if she could have killed me, she would have done it. And I was talking about, I don't know how we got into this discussion of the Founding Fathers. And I said something like, they were, like we all are, children of our time, and I guess there are things about them, some owned slaves. Washington freed them after the Revolution, but I said, I don't think there's probably any country blessed with a more a spectacular group of people guided by 18th century principles, some of which are maybe a little bit thin when you scratch them, but, as a set of beliefs that guided people in the right direction, they were very, very good. I mean, they were based on lots of myths, but the value of myths don't reside in their demonstrability as facts. I mean, they reside in their ability, it seems to me, to promote, good behavior. And I don't think any nation was ever blessed with a greater set of people. And then the rabbi turned on me with fury, and this young woman who was 14 years old sitting next to her began to cry, and then I was told how horrible I was because she was a Native American, and that these people had annihilated her people, and how dare I speak in defense of George Washington. I mean, this was this is Monty Python.